Let's bring in Rami Khouri now. He's a senior public policy fellow at the American University of Beirut, and he's joining us live from New York. Very good to see you, Mr. Khouri. I want to start with something that we just heard from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, talking about how a possible deal normalizing ties with Saudi could essentially lead to this elusive peace in the Middle East. But wouldn't Israel have to end its illegal occupation for that to happen? Is it willing to do that under a possible deal?
Clearly, Israel is not willing to do that. It wants to maintain perpetual Zionist, Jewish, Israeli control, sovereignty over all of historic Palestine, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean. So there's no way that the Israelis are going to be able to meet the demands that would satisfy the Arab world or international law or UN resolutions. The irony is that the Saudi government 21 years ago, offered Israel full diplomatic relations, not only with the Arab world, but with another 50 or so Muslim-majority countries in the Islamic organization. And the Israelis have repeatedly turned this down, and the Americans have never responded to the Arab peace plan. So the idea that Arabs can make peace with Israel is an Arab idea. It came out several decades ago. The Israelis today are in a very different place. They're run by a government that is widely called an apartheid state around the world. And so this is a very important moment, but we must understand that it is responding mostly to political needs in the United States for people running for president like Biden, and for Israeli leader Netanyahu, who's trying to get out of the bind that he's in with his courts and public opinion.
And what is Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed Bin Salman trying to achieve here? I mean, he has said that the Palestinian issue is very important. We need to solve that part when asked about normalization.
I think he is sincere that the Palestine issue means a lot to the Saudi government and people, but it's not clear at all what he means by that. Does it mean just to loosen some of the Israeli controls, maybe give more aid money, freedom of travel? But the idea of total Palestinian sovereignty in a Palestinian state, the end of Israeli colonization and occupation, and the end of the Zionist Israeli apartheid system, those are things that the Saudis have never talked about in any kind of detail. And Mohammed bin Salman is a fascinating figure who also generates huge amounts of concern in many places around the world, as well as a lot of admiration for what he's done to liberalize Saudi policy. But for instance, his rapprochement with the Iranians is a very important move that they should have done 3-4 years ago. So he's a very mercurial fellow, and he's trying to show that Saudi Arabia is a powerful country that will take decisive action for its own interests and the region. But he's never been able to pursue a sustained, clear policy, and we just have to wait and see what this is going to lead to, because it's not specific. It's very broad statements, cliches that are mostly in response.
Very broad, very ambitious. Interesting that you mentioned that Saudi rapprochement with Iran, because Mohammed bin Salman did say in that interview that if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, then we must get one too. You spoke about concerns around Saudi Arabia, especially under Mohammed bin Salman. Do you think that the White House could actually get any deal, a defense pact, a nuclear agreement with Saudi through Congress, given its previous concerns about Mohammed bin Salman, his human rights record? Any defense pact would need congressional ratification, would it not?
You know, President Biden said that his support for Israel is ironclad. What is not ironclad is his commitment 2 years ago when he was running for president to say that he would treat Mohammed bin Salman as a pariah for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. That is, he completely reversed that and threw it out the window. So you're dealing with American political figures, like Israeli figures, like political figures in most of the countries of the world, who have no real commitment to keeping promises, except if they win them electoral votes or money for campaigns or other things that make sense to them in a domestic American political context. There's a lot of opposition to closer ties with the Saudi government under Mohammed bin Salman. They not only want nuclear facilities to generate energy, they say, and not for bombs. They also want a security and defense treaty from the United States. And many people in the Senate have spoken out with concern about this in the United States, that they're not really sure that the Saudi regime is the kind of country that you want to give an ironclad security guarantee like they've given to Japan or to Korea.
And there are also...
So there are many...
Yeah, and not just concerns with Saudi Arabia, but there are perhaps more concerns about Israel now than at any other time between the two countries, between America and Israel, are they not? What about the timing of a possible deal for Israel? I mean, Prime Minister Netanyahu's far-right government has been facing protests all year over its plans to take powers away from the judiciary. Could a deal bolster Netanyahu when his critics are saying that he's launching, the biggest assault on Israeli democracy?
Absolutely. The deal is designed, if it works, to bolster the American President Biden and the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Joe Biden was honest enough to say this when he went on his trip to Saudi Arabia. I think it was over 9, 10, 12 months ago. I can't remember the exact date, when he promised never to shake Mohammed Bin Salman's hand. He actually then went there and saw him because he wanted oil prices to remain low. And he completely reversed his policies and went to get benefits for Joe Biden and the Democrats in the United States, as Netanyahu wants to get benefits for himself. The terrible thing about this is a process that perpetuates 100 years of Western colonial-type manipulation in the region that totally ignores the 440 million Arab men and women citizens. You're dealing with a few individual leaders, some of whom may be wonderful people here and there, but there's total disregard for the rights and the citizenship quality of hundreds of millions of ordinary Arabs who are silent, passive observers in this process, have no say in their future, no say in their policies. But when they are polled, the Arab people have consistently said for the last 10 years, somewhere between 70 and 95% of the Arab people consistently say they will only have normal relations with Israel when Israel lives alongside a Palestinian state and the Palestinian refugee issue is addressed through international law.
Yeah.
So there's no problem with Arabs recognizing Israel. We've been trying to do this for years. There's a problem with Israel living according to international law.
Mr. Khoury, it is always great to get your insights. That is Rami Khoury joining us live from New York. Thank you.
Thank you.